Rules on MPs taking second jobs are to be discussed by a government watchdog on ethical standards later this week. It comes as the former Chancellor, George Osborne, accepted a job as editor of the Evening Standard while still remaining an MP. The Conservatives' leader in Scotland, Ruth Davidson, defended George Osborne's appointment when she appeared on the Andrew Marr programme earlier today. Well, with us is our political correspondent, Chris Mason. Chris, this committee were already taking a look at outside interests and second jobs, weren't they, before George Osborne was appointed?
Yeah, this is a key part of their job, and they had a meeting scheduled for this coming Thursday. Anyway, they meet every month. I think it was inevitable, given the extent to which Westminster's Gast was flabbered by the news on Friday, that they were going to add this whole business of George Osborne as a case study, if you like, in the broader question, which does pop up now and again, of what sort of outside interest it's legitimate for an MP to have. Now, the language that is usually used in this context is, should MPs have a second job? Well, George Osborne has got 6 jobs, 5 of which are paid, and one of which working for the Northern Powerhouse project, which was his kind of pet project when he was Chancellor. Is obviously about championing the north of England, and you can have an argument about whether it is possible to do that whilst also being the editor of the newspaper that proclaims itself to be the voice of London. Now, Mr Osborne argues that it's not a zero-sum game, but nonetheless, you know, you can point to conflicts of interest. So this committee, the Committee on Standards in Public Life, is going to discuss this on Thursday. Now, that doesn't mean the rules are going to instantly change. They may not change at all, but they're certainly going to discuss them because they have an interesting and colourful case study to kick around, don't they?
Ruth Davidson, we mentioned her before, she said, you know, this is perfectly OK.
She has, although interestingly, she's the Conservative leader in Scotland. She also made the argument that as somebody who used to be a journalist herself, she worked for the BBC for 10 years and then became a politician, she thought both jobs were pretty full on, and so the idea of doing them both at the same time would be quite something. Nicky Morgan, former Education Secretary, was very interesting this morning, appearing on the Peston programme on ITV. She made the argument, and there is an argument to be made here, that look, he used to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Well, that's a huge job, and he did that alongside being a constituency MP for a constituency a long way away from where he was Chancellor.
Most ministers do, London, though, don't they?
But then that's the nature of being in government, and the argument would be that that doesn't present you with conflicts of interest because you are an MP for the governing party and you're a member of that government. I guess the challenge and the criticism that comes George Osborne's way is the whole business of, one, the whole time management thing, but then secondly, the potential conflict of interest. So, for instance, on a Monday evening, as a political correspondent, one of my jobs often is to go along and loiter outside what's known as the 1922 Committee of Conservative Backbenchers, and they all shuffle in there, and usually there's a senior member of the party who comes in and speaks, and we press our ears to the door, trying to hear a wooden door, and quite a thick wooden door actually, unfortunately, to see are they cheering, are they banging the desks, and then we'll try and ask MPs afterwards what's emerged, and they're not meant to tell us very much, so sometimes there might be text exchange later privately to try and find out what's happened. I was once leaning against the door to such an extent that somebody opened it from the inside and I fell in. But they're very protective of that environment. And yet, George Osborne could go along to that meeting and he's the editor of the London Evening Standard.
And he sits on the Privy Council.
Yeah, and so that kind of issue is going to be an interesting one in terms of how it plays out.
You've given us a very interesting insight into how you spend your Monday evenings, but I can't believe you loiter anywhere, Chris. You're far too...
Plenty of loitering in my job.
Oh, really? Say no more. 28 minutes past 8.